It's a Tuesday. It's the 4th day of June, 2024. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Wyoming State Parks. With temperatures warming up across the Cowboy State, Wyoming State Parks and historic sites are gearing up with a season of fun and educational summer events. Visit these parks' respective Facebook pages for more information on these events. Well, folks, we had quite the sunset, as you'll see here, across portions of eastern Wyoming yesterday evening. What we're going to have is, I'm afraid to say, for many of you, pretty windy conditions. It's going to be windy across Montana, the Dakotas, large part of Wyoming, some of the wind-prone areas in northern Colorado, as we have a fast-moving trough moving on through the parade of Pacific fronts that have really gone on for 6-7 weeks. This continues, and that's going to make it windy. But behind the front, after we get into some windy conditions, drier and warmer air shifts into the region. Basically, from today through Thursday, the rain chances are pretty meager for just about everybody. There'll be a few lingering showers early today over the higher terrain in a few spots, but there's really not much rain in the forecast from today through Thursday. As humidities will drop, high pressure moves in, and some desert air comes up from the southwest. But by the end of the week, as we showed you yesterday, moisture in the air increases in the Intermountain West beginning on Friday. It holds through the weekend. So as you plan your weekend, you got to plan on afternoon and evening thunderstorms, especially in the mountains, both sides of the divide in the lower elevations as well, as the thunderstorms are going to want to be near the higher terrain that gets heated up, causes some lift in the atmosphere from that daytime heating, and you get those thunderstorms. So be ready for those this weekend, but temperatures will be comfortably warm. It looks like a pretty big push of Canadian air is going to come down the eastern side of the Continental Divide by early next week. And a lot of the nation, Monday through Wednesday of next week, east of the Rockies, is going to be much cooler than normal, while the Pacific Northwest, anybody watching this podcast in the Pacific Northwest, you're going to get some heat. We're going to get some summer heat. So it's going to be the Pacific Northwest hot, the nation's midsection cool as we go into next week. There's another photo. The Wheatland area was ground zero for spectacular vistas yesterday evening across eastern Wyoming, down into Cheyenne, also in the Wheatland area there, and then into parts of Goshen County. Beautiful sundown yesterday evening. The satellite imagery this morning is showing the high and mid-level clouds associated with the trough. You can see strong jet stream winds right here. As the trough moves on by, we're going to see some showers and thunderstorms up into the northern areas, out eastward into the plain states. But you can see a lot of clear skies. High pressure and drier air in this region is what's going to be moving eastward and northward in the coming days. There's the trough and the frontal system coming through the area today. That tight gradient, strong jet stream winds aloft, perpendicular to the divide. That makes it windy, especially in those areas right up here. So we'll have to deal with that. And these are the wind gusts predicted basically through tomorrow. So nothing crazy, but just persistent, very strong winds. You can see the area of very gusty winds highlighted into this area right here. That's where the winds will be at their worst, especially along Interstate 80, I-25. Be ready for strong and gusty winds across those roadways. But precipitation between now and Thursday looks like this. And most of this activity right here is basically going to happen early this morning, leftovers. Moisture staying further north, up into south central and southern areas of Canada. So not a lot going on in this region here for a good 3 days. As we get to the end of the week, as we showed you yesterday, we've got this upper level low here off the Baja of Mexico. We have the clockwise circulation around this high, and they're working together. So this is going to cause a transport of higher water content air northward into the western United States. Now, it doesn't mean it's bringing rain. It's just bringing water vapor, increasing the water vapor into the mix in the western states by the time we get to the end of the week and the weekend. So basically, there's more water in the air. So if you have the right set of circumstances, that more water will help form afternoon clouds and afternoon showers and thunderstorms, because that water in the air, that extra water with the rising motions from the heat of the day along the mountain slopes, will cause some shower and thunderstorm development. And as we show you the precipitable water over time, starting from today, it takes us through Sunday, you can see that higher water content air coming on into the Great Basin and into the region. If you're under the green or the blue there, it doesn't guarantee you rain, but it does give you a pretty good chance of afternoon and evening thunderstorms in your area. And some of this moisture, the moisture profile is pretty deep, so there could be some decent rain producing showers and thunderstorms in this pattern. You'll notice at the last slide here, this dry air coming on in right there behind this line, that drier air part of that cold front that comes down the divide early next week. So as you plan your weekend, just going to do what we normally do to show you where we think the thunderstorms are going to be. Notice it gets on the other side of the divide. The higher terrain definitely is going to be a focal point, as well as areas where the moisture convergence along the Front Range will be a little bit more as well. So things get going Friday after very little going on today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Friday, and as we go into Saturday, then as we go into Sunday. Notice there's a sharp gradient once you get off the I-25 corridor. That's because of that drier air and that cold front pushing down into these areas here. That's going to concentrate the moisture right along the divide as we get into Sunday and Monday. By Monday, we see this little wave. The winds aloft are actually coming in from the northwest. So if this wave comes through, that's going to bring in some cooler air from Canada. The air masses are coming in from that direction. The heat, the high retrogrades westward, so it's going to bake up here in the Pacific Northwest and California. Going to see some real bona fide June heat there. While east of the Rockies, this is not a very June-looking weather pattern at all. Cooler air spills across the eastern and central areas of the U.S. Look at these temperature anomalies by noon on Monday. So quite cool relative to the 30-year averages along and east of the divide Monday, and hot. Getting hot in Washington, Oregon, central and northern California, into the Great Basin, into Las Vegas, back into Phoenix. But the divide holds up the cooler air. What's interesting is look at the lower 48. This is downright cool for June. This is not a summer pattern at all for the Corn Belt. That is very, very cool, but very, very hot. And this is something that I think is going to come into play next week. The heat will be along the west coast and the Pacific Northwest, cooler over the rest of the nation. What will probably happen, and we see this a lot in the summer season, this heat will kind of curve around and go all the way up into here, and eventually Montana up into this region right here. Later next week, we'll get into the heat while the cool slides off to the east. Have yourself a good Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.